built to work in the Palouse and the Camas Prairie region of Nez Perce, Idaho, where we're getting a good amount of annual rainfall. We have really nutrient-rich soils, but being bred by WSU, Washington State University, they took that. Stingray Wheat.
Great and a half.
Grain in Northeast IPA.
I mean, let's talk about
hazy, standard classic styles. It's really adaptable.
It's super adaptable. Hi, my name is Leslie Shore. I'm the project manager at Coldstream Malt and Grain. I'm a brewing professional with over 15 years experience.
I'm Rachel, and I am the director of relationships at Coldstream Malt and Grain. I have 7 years experience in the industry, from brewing and malt to working tap rooms, and I am excited to talk about Stingray Wheat today.
It's going to be pretty great.
Yeah.
We are, like we said, we're from Coldstream, and Coldstream is a farmer-owned malt company based out of eastern Washington and western Idaho. So we farm on the Palouse and we farm on the Nez Perce.
Both great dryland growing regions, so no irrigation, relying on annual rainfall, really nutrient-rich soils, deep topsoil in this particular region of the country.
The microbiome is
strong.
Very strong and diverse.
Absolutely. We've got a lot of microorganisms underneath the soil that are helping break down and transmit nutrients to other plants, and helping create a nice cohesive environment for plants to thrive in, particularly barley and wheat.
And our farms, we are multi-generational farms, correct? So
yeah.
We have a few generations on one farm and up to 5 generations on the other farm. So we're here to keep making sure that we're ecologically sound when it comes to our farming practices. Like, we take care of the earth because the earth takes care of what we grow.
Yeah, we want to be stewards of the land. We want to make sure it's viable for future use, for farming in particular. Farming's a very big industry in our region, and it's important to have farming be viable for the future so we can have food and beer.
And having a good topsoil with deep, rich nutrient layer means that we're able to really provide top, high-quality malted barley and malted wheat, especially in this condition where we're talking about Stingray Wheat today, so that the end product for brewers and distillers is something that's truly exceptional.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Keeping our canvas the best it can be.
We're keeping it pretty.
Yeah, it is gorgeous out there too.
Yeah.
Rolling amber waves of grain.
Legitimately.
Yeah.
So, Rachel, what is Stingray Wheat?
So Stingray Wheat is a soft white winter wheat, and it was bred by WSU, Washington State University, which is a land-grant college here in Washington State that is, it has a barley breeding program and a wheat breeding program that is looking to create or innovate different varieties that are going to be thriving in the environment in which we grow. So varieties that are going to be resistant to drought, they're going to be resistant to various like Fusarium head blight or rust or the striping that can happen, various diseases affecting our row crops, and then also looking to find something that's going to be a really great malting variety, so not just used for food but also used to be malted for brewing and distilling.
So there are different classifications, right? Because there are some varieties that are bred for cattle or for animal or for flour production for baked goods.
Correct.
And then there's a different version which is for malting, and that goes straight towards brewing and distilling.
And a lot of the things they're looking for there is in barley we want a lower protein, with high plump. We want a good kernel size. We want good yield. And we want something that is going to have a lot of enzyme capability to convert starches into sugars. So looking at the overall of how that kernel works in the malting process, how easily it is to convert or modify, and then create something that still is viable and very usable in a brew house or in a distillery.
Right. So we're looking at different qualities.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you say it's soft white winter wheat, so that means we sow it basically in the fall.
Correct.
So it can overwinter and have a dormancy during the winter.
And the seed needs that overwintering as part of its development in order to have the energy it needs to produce all of the green matter and the biomass.
So all of the starches that are inside the endosperm and all of the enzymes that are currently locked in the alurone layer, those come from overwintering.
Correct. Yeah. So it needs that process in order to create something really beautiful in the spring. And there's spring versus wheat. So we have two different seed varieties, and there's several different, a lot of different varieties that fall into each classification,
Sure.
spring or wheat. And it affects how early you seed and how early you harvest.
So we typically would harvest the soft white winter wheat like the height of summer, so like late July, early August.
Correct. And it comes off a little bit earlier than spring planting would. Spring planting doesn't need overwintering. It's just going to go in, it's going to get water, it's going to get sun, it's going to thrive. And those are going to come off a little bit later. So your winter seed is going to come off a week or two earlier than some of the spring planting seeding does.
And so when we talk about dryland farming with Stingray Wheat, we're looking at absolutely no irrigation, right? We're relying on the precipitation from the winter time.
Correct.
We are using as few inputs as possible when it comes to pesticides, insecticides, fertilizers, and it's mainly to make sure that we're not tilling the soil, but it's a double whammy here. We're also making sure that we maintain our salmon safe certification.
Yeah, so no-till is something that we've taken on, our company has taken on, the farmer owners, is a way to be stewards of the land. So when they don't till up all of the ground soil, they are keeping all of the rootlets intact. They're keeping the microorganisms intact. They're keeping the soil protected from erosion. So you're holding all of the nutrients in, but you're also holding the structure of the field. So it means less chance for runoff into zones of waterways, so any streams, creeks, rivers you might have nearby. You're not just washing away soil, you're washing away every input you put into the soil, any pesticide, herbicide, what have you. So we are able to maintain salmon safe certification. It's a 3-year certification where they look at our lots of land and where they are adjacent to waterways. And we have riparian buffers, where we have grassy buffers in between the farming field and the waterway. And those root structures, the plant structure, are keeping what's in the field and away from the water stream. So we don't have any sort of bleed out. And we're also able to maintain a really healthy, intact structure in our soil in the field so that it's viable and fertile for the next year.
We do see that dryland farming also has lower yields than commodity farming, and that's simply because this kind of farming isn't applicable at a commodity scale.
Correct.
So when we're looking at our soft white winter wheat, which is Stingray, it's an absolute designation. It's a named variety of soft white winter wheat. We're looking at it maintaining soil structure. It's helping to retain the nutrients for the next rotational crop that comes in, which is usually soybean or
Garbanzo
beans.
Garbanzo beans are a good rotation in that particular area, they grow well there with the annual rainfall, and that rotation in crop can help put nutrients back into the soil, and it helps with keeping weed pressure down. You're always growing something, and you want to make sure you're not getting only one type of nutrient into the soil. So transitioning between crops in each field is going to help put nutrients back into the soil. So it's going to help with weed pressure, so you need fewer inputs from pesticides, herbicides, what have you.
So it's just really smart agronomy.
It's really great. It's saving you on energy, diesel, all of these other things that you would be doing as part of your maintenance of the land, that you can bypass that and still have a really great growing environment.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And taking those considerations as well when it comes to our changing global climate. So making sure that we have a crop that is drought resistant as well as disease tolerant.
Yeah, we're seeing longer spans of time with hotter temperatures during the summer, and that can lead to a need for the plant to get a little bit more water. So if we don't have irrigation to supplement that, we're really relying on the breeding to be drought tolerant and still thrive and not be completely stressed out during those times. And we do get cooler nights, and we'll get rain at good parts of the season, good parts of the growing time, where the plants are, maybe they're hot during the day. If we get a little bit of a heat dome, they get the cooler night to relieve themselves and not have the plant stress leading to more biomass instead of kernel production. So we're still able to achieve nice plump kernels of good size that have enough of that endosperm and the starchiness to then be malted and converted into available
sugars
for sugar.
For yeast.
Right.
So yeast that consume it.
Correct.
To make delicious beer and whiskey.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so with dryland farming, we're looking at making sure that the top layer of the soil has the most available microbiome, it has the most available amount of nutrients, as well as being as deep as possible. So we're not turning over that soil and having it blow away, get too dry, wash down into a ravine or a creek.
Right. And that goes into our Salmon Safe certification. All of our fields for both farms are Salmon Safe certified. That's a 3-year certification process where they look at all of the outline of your lots and how close they are to waterways, and if you have any riparian buffer zones, so grassy planted areas between your field and the water. All of that root structure, the plant structure, is going to help with anything that might want to be loose running off. It's going to be kept into the field, held by that zone, and it's keeping any sort of pesticide, herbicide, loose soil from running off into that waterway.
And when we talk about pesticides and herbicides, we're talking about pinpoint applications. It's not broadcast, so that's how Salmon Safe certification goes. We have like a machine that can pinpoint exactly where a dose needs to be applied. So we're not dosing an entire large field and then having that run off into a waterway.
We're actually using the least necessary.
Yeah.
Because we can pinpoint a droplet on a leaf at going 10 miles an hour through the field. So we aren't doing broadcast spray. It's not going into the soil. It's only going onto the green mass of whatever the thing is that we're trying to control.
And that's super key when we're talking about making sure that our crops are ecologically diverse enough when it comes to the nutrients that they consume, but also we're maintaining our stewardship of the land.
Absolutely. And our waterways are kept clean, and we're able to be confident in our farming practices being good for not just the land, but the surrounding area.
So we're going to talk about the differences between wheat and barley in the malt house. Now, barley, as most folks know, has a husk on it, which aids in filtration, but it also adds some tannins when we're looking at deeper extraction in louder tones. Wheat doesn't have a husk.
Correct, holeless. So you don't have that benefit of filtration that you would on the husk of the barley, but you're also not running a risk of extracting too much from it and getting those tannins in your runnings into the kettle.
And that means that when we're malting this, like when we trick it into thinking that it's going to grow another plant, and then we dry it out so we can capture those sugars and then use it for barley, for brewing and for distilling, that means that there's going to be a different kind of technique, right?
A little bit, yes. Yeah. So you're going to be thinking about how much you're going to be putting into your grain bill. Because there isn't a hole, you might find a little bit of stickiness. It is higher protein. We're looking at 12.5 to 13% protein on a wheat. But it's not as high in beta-glucans, which are going to be like the really binding, sticky notes.
Yeah.
And if you're using wheat in a hazy IPA or a blonde ale or something where you want to add that kind of pillowy softness, that roundness, without it being a huge portion of your grist, you're not going to find any problems with stickiness if you aren't, milling that in first. You're not setting that as your grain bed.
Right.
It's definitely not as sticky as using flaked oats or flaked wheat. Flaked wheat is even a little stickier than a malted that you're going to be milling.
And when we're looking at flavors from the malt house perspective for Stingray White Wheat, what are we thinking about?
So I'm thinking a little bit of floury, like doughy, when you have just a raw dough that's kind of freshly made and it's starting to proof, and you get that a little bit of kind of sweet aroma off of it with that flour note.
That's nice.
It's not quite ready, but it's just before ready. It's just really nice, and it adds that good bit of mouthfeel, that good bit of body to something that might otherwise be too lean. And it sets up a backbone for you to use larger hop loads or advanced hop products, what have you, to still have balance.
And wheat, in and of itself, is filled with foam-positive proteins, LTP1 and protein Z or Z. Barley malt doesn't have a lot of these foam-positive proteins, so you're able to build like a lid or a nice dense head on the beers with that, and that also carries through the aroma. So if you're looking at adding it to an IPA or a hazy IPA, that's going to carry through a lot of those softer notes that we're looking at from the more exotic hops, especially like the Southern Hemisphere hops.
Absolutely, which are all the rage right now, and they are so great in a hazy IPA.
Delicious.
They just make it so pop and punchy that it just keeps you mouth-watering, wanting more.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Speaking of wanting more. Speaking of hazy IPAs, Stingray White Wheat is fantastic in hazy IPAs as well as West Coast IPAs.
Absolutely.
And there's quite a few breweries here on the western coast of the United States that use Stingray White Wheat in their IPAs. And we're drinking one right now that uses Stingray White Wheat in this hazy IPA, and it's absolutely delicious.
Absolutely. It's been fun kind of getting to peek into people's brew houses and look at their recipes and see that they're sneaking a little bit of wheat into a West Coast IPA. It's typically, it's crispy. It's got a little bit of bitterness backbone. It's tiny maybe with some top notes of citrus and what have you. But they're sneaking in a little bit of wheat to balance the oils from the alpha acid and to give you a little bit more to hold on to in terms of fullness without becoming a haze bomb.
And also provide that lid too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're getting the head stability, you're getting lacing down the glass, you're getting a technically well-rounded beer. And you're not compromising clarity necessarily if you're not using a huge percentage and you're doing...
Like 10% for West Coast?
10%. Yeah. And it's just enough to kind of round those edges out.
It's pretty amazing. I would say like what, 30% would be super ideal for a hazy IPA.
Yeah.
And, I mean, with that, you're going to need some extra filtration aids, but the flavor combinations that come out of there and the ways that you can support all of your hop additions are pretty incredible.
And you just get that nice balance. And I think, like, what we all want to achieve as brewers is balance. And that's what's really striking in a great beer.
Yeah.
When you're finding top notes, bottom notes, the fullness, the leanness, all of it kind of being in harmony with each other. Looking at all of your raw products is what's going to get you there.
And Stingray White Wheat is perfect for traditional uses as well, like in a Hefeweizen or a Saison. The softness is able to really round out those phenolic notes that you would get from fermentation, from those specific yeast strains, but it really does shine, as we're saying, in West Coast and Northeast style IPAs, the hazy IPAs.
Yeah, wheat is very versatile, and it just depends on how much you're putting in, what your rest of the beer looks like, and what your fermentation profile is. And there's always a way to kind of use it to slide in a little bit of softness and fermentation capability without overpowering your beer.
And you're keeping it true to style as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when we're talking about the value perspective of Stingray White Wheat versus a commodity white wheat, what are we looking at?
We're looking at something that is, maybe a little bit more pricey on the price per pound, but at the same time, you're getting something that was cared for and in a very intentional way, and that is achieving things that larger maltsters can't necessarily achieve.
So there's a story and a traceability.
Absolutely. We have a small enough farm with as few number of growers as we need for our sustainability, where we're able to put the farm on the bag. We're able to trace that lot back to what field it was, how it was grown, when each process in the farming application, where it happened, how much was used. And we're able to tell a story with our regionality. Our wheat tastes different in the Palouse than it would in Western Washington. And it's a significant difference because of the climate and because of the soil itself. And you're then getting something that was very intentionally malted. I think a big indicator of that is our low color. We're able to achieve a really great malted wheat with about 2 SRM or lower.
Which is pretty incredible when you're thinking about adding any color or making sure that you're not adding color to an IPA or to a wit beer or to a Hefeweizen.
Or even a hazy.
Or even a hazy. Like if you're concerned about color with your input on the wheat side, then you know you're not going to get something that's 5 SRM. You're going to get something that's 2, maybe lower.
Right. Even a lot of other malted wheats can be in the 3.5 range. That is kind of seen as a low color wheat. But ours is able to be tended to more carefully because of our size, because of our attention to detail. So we're able to dial it in to still have a great end result with a little bit lower color.
And so we keep saying the name of this variety. We keep calling it Stingray, and because that's its name, it's a named variety of wheat. Now, a lot of folks, especially people that are casual beer drinkers, they can name off a hop. You can name off like Citra.
Comet.
Comet. Love Comet.
That's my favorite.
It's mine too. But not a lot of folks can name off a varietal of barley or wheat malt.
Right.
And so this is specifically bred by Washington State University, and it is a named malt. So if you see something on your favorite brewer's beer can that says, or beer label that says brewed with Stingray, well, you know one thing, it came from us, and you know something else, it was born and raised in Washington State.
bred out of Washington State University.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cheers.
So, with Stingray White Wheat, if this has anyone curious about, well, how do I integrate this into my next great creation? It's pretty easy. You can contact myself or Rachel.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm Leslie at Leslie, I can't spell my name, at Leslie, Leslie, at coldstreammalt.com.
I'm Rachel, Rachel, at coldstreammalt.com.
And with that access, if you have a question on how to use this wheat or basically any other brewing questions, we're here to answer that.
We love it.
Yeah.
So please.
And if we don't know it, we know someone who will.
We definitely do.
For real. So consider where your wheat is grown. Consider integrating soft white winter wheat into your rotation for your recipes, especially with your IPAs, West Coast and hazies. And please look us up.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers.